I'm very smart. I just wanted to say that.
It's alright, we'll just correct you. You ready?
Yeah. Hi, welcome to Gunpowder Fiction and Plot. I'm Scott.
I'm Nelle.
And today we're going to talk about foreshadowing.
Yeah, so we started talking about this because Scott is rereading the Wheel of Time books. And he started talking about how he's noticed on the reread that what's his name?
Robert Jordan is really heavy-handed with his foreshadowing.
Yeah, he's foreshadowing like many books in advance. And I said when I attempted to read the series several years ago that was one of the things I didn't like about it because I felt like he was spoiling his own storyline.
And I disagree. I actually am getting a lot from the foreshadowing this time, the read through the second time.
Yeah, so then we started talking about what is good foreshadowing and what is bad foreshadowing, and we have decided to share with you 5 authors who we think do foreshadowing, who we agree do foreshadowing really well. So Robert Jordan is not on this list. And why and what that means, what is good foreshadowing.
So foreshadowing is when an author gives you a hint about what's coming in the future. So they may do something like they may use a plot point that they're going to do with the major character. They might do it on a minor character and see the major character's reaction to it. So later on...
Yeah, often it's as simple as using imagery and that sort of thing to give you little sneaky hints and previews. A lot of the time, I think when it's done really well, it's a feeling you get rather than actually noticing them use a tactic when you're reading. Although I personally am quite good at noticing the tactic.
It seems really egotistical.
It does, it's just the way personally I'm good at that.
I'm very smart. I just wanted to say that. Yeah.
So once we're done telling Scott to stick it,
so like another way can just be using the protagonist's internal monologue, have them think about something or whatever.
Yeah, I definitely prefer a less heavy-handed approach. I think it interrupts the narrative less and is less blatant that they're trying to... Anyway, the whole point of foreshadowing is not to spoil your own plot. It's not to deliver spoilers in advance. It's to get an emotional reaction. And whether that emotional reaction is a feeling of dread because something bad is going to happen, or a feeling of anticipation because something good is going to happen, that's the aim of foreshadowing, I think.
I think that's one of the aims. I think it's a tool that you can use for a lot of things. I think that it often reinforces points really well, and allows you to look at things from different perspectives.
Yeah, I also think that some authors use it to question things like fate and all that sort of thing. So it's something that can be used in various contexts for various reasons. But a lot of authors do it badly, and the ones that we're going to talk about do it really well, and it gives you a good emotional response to the foreshadowing. So
the first author we're going to discuss...
Yeah.
The first author we're going to discuss is a book that you recently finished reading.
Well, an author that I've recently finished reading, because I think that she does this in both books that I've read of hers.
So, Audrey Niffenegger, most famously for The Time Traveller's Wife.
And I recently finished Her Fearful Symmetry, and in both of those, she created a real serious sense of dread for me when she did some foreshadowing. In The Time Traveller's Wife, they talk about what happens at the end. It's a fear of the characters that it's going to happen, and you carry that with you throughout them telling their own tale, and you're afraid of it happening too, and then it does happen, and it's just all the more devastating because you were afraid it was coming. And I feel quite similar with the Her Fearful Symmetry. I felt like I knew what was going to happen, and I was so angry, and I was very angry, but I was so hopeful that it wouldn't happen, and the characters would, escape the terrible ending, and that the tragedy wouldn't occur, and then it does.
And that's a really good example because it gets you thinking about that and you're dreading it happening.
And how could they get around it? And what could these characters do that would be in character that would not... Yeah.
And some authors will do that and they'll then do a Pollyanna Disney sort of ending.
Yeah. But that's not what happened here. And by the time the ending came around, I was really angry at the ending, but I was so satisfied that it was correct because I had already explored in my own mind all of the other believable options because of the foreshadowing, and I knew that they weren't going to happen.
I should say, Nelle being angry at a book doesn't mean that the book is bad. In fact, that often means that she really liked the book.
I did really like the book, but if you have watched our review on it, I'm a bit ranty.
Yeah.
But I really loved it, so that's just who I am. Sorry.
Okay. So an author that uses foreshadowing in the complete opposite way of Nifinaga is Tolkien.
Yes, Tolkien does the bait and switch. He all the way through he has this dark foreboding, foreshadowing of what will happen if
evil. Will you be able to help me, Sam?
Yeah.
Am I going to be strong enough, Sam?
But not even just in that context. Like, what happens if... I want to say the Dark Lord, but I feel like that's...
Saruman.
What happens if Saruman wins? You know, what is going to happen to all these little villages and all the characters we meet? And there's this creepy foreshadowing of how they're going to be under the rule of Mordor, and then they get, rescued.
Yeah, spoiler alert.
Come on. Do I have to announce a Tolkien spoiler for... No, I don't think I do.
I don't think you do,
no.
No, also, if knowing the ending of Tolkien ruins it for you, then you didn't really get a lot out of that book.
It's a lot of reading if all you care about is the surprise ending.
The ending is not the next
thing.
Okay, so an author I think that does foreboding, an author who I think does foreshadowing very well is Thomas Hardy. I think that this is really obvious in The Mayor of Casterbridge with the canary, if you've read that book. He also does it really heavy-handed in Tess of the D'Urbervilles, which sort of makes you believe the twist, and it really makes the twist in Tess of the D'Urbervilles feel really satisfying. Trying not to give anything away.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm stifling the discussion by not giving away any spoilers.
No, but I think this is a good recommendation list, and I'd love to think that people who are watching this video are going away and picking some of these books because they know that the foreshadowing is going to make them feel something. You know what I mean? Like. Yeah. So if that's you and you end up picking up one of these books and having a read, please come back and tell us in the comments what you thought of how the author foreshadowed the ending and its relationship to what really was the outcome.
And I think with Hardy, if you've read Hardy, you know that Hardy's not going to give you a happy ending.
He is not Disney.
You know that somebody's going to be very miserable at the end of this, and that's the best case scenario. So you're sort of waiting for that series of events to happen, and often he shows you it beforehand.
So I think the one that I wanted to mention was Stephen King. I think Stephen King is exceptionally good at doing a bit of foreshadowing. If you look at an old classic, The Stand, the dream sequences that they all have all foreshadows. Not even the ending of the book, but like just 2 or 3 steps ahead, each of the characters is getting little warnings and omens of how their path is going to be around the next corner, and it creates a sense of dread and suspensefulness, and brings into question fate and all that sort of thing. So it's actually like a really important thematic tool that he uses in that particular novel. But having read a few Stephen King books, he uses this tactic to different effects all the time, and always in a way that's really satisfying.
Is that why he's considered a horror novelist, even though he writes such a diverse range of genres?
I would think so. Also, he's got a really creepy brain. I just think that's where he is.
Alright, and the last author we're going to discuss, probably the author who does it the best, although that's a bit debatable.
Scott has a thing. He's got like a fantasy about ranking everything in order, whatever.
Oh, whatever. The author we think that does it really well is Steinbeck.
Yeah. Now, we're both big Steinbeck fans, so it's not a huge surprise that that Steinbeck's on a list of books we recommend for any reason, really. But when you think about Of Mice and Men, I think is really the simplest example, and the foreshadowing of the ending early on with
the puppy,
or the mouse, like earlier on, like it's actually echoed throughout the whole tiny little book, and the same little occurrence.
Well, he's foreshadowing the puppy with the mouse, and then he's foreshadowing the ending with the puppy.
Yeah, and the other dog that I can't remember the farmhand's name. It's been a while. There's lots of foreshadowing and lots of echoing and repetition of the same theme throughout. And I think it gives us an opportunity to examine it from more than one perspective and from more than one moral standpoint, which I suspect is the whole point.
Yeah, also, if you want a recommendation on this list to read in your time poor, Of Mice and Men, quick, easy, if you've not read it.
Yeah, and if you don't love it, then you have no soul.
It will make you cry.
Or you have no soul.
Or you have no soul.
Just to judge you completely. If you didn't cry at Of Mice and Men, then maybe we're not friends.
You say some horrible things.
True, I'm hoping that they'll yell at me in the comments.
Somebody's
Go and argue with
watching,
me, I dare you.
Somebody's watching going, I really like this now, and then you're like, you have no soul, and I'm like, oh.
So that is our list of authors who we think do foreshadowing really well. I'd really like to hear from anyone who has anyone to add to that list, because I'm into that. I think I'd read suggestions in this category. Also, if you like the video, press the thumbs up. Subscribe to us because we're awesome. And follow us on Insta. And photos of our puppy.
And remember, ideas are powerful. They're more powerful than having no soul.